If you have any experience speaking English in the real world, you might have noticed that one thing is learning English from the comfort of your home, your school, or through your own study methods, and a whole other thing is actually using English in an authentic speaking situation. There is this considerable gap between learning English on paper and English in use. The more advanced your English is, the shorter this gap will be. However, even highly proficient English speakers regularly encounter situations where they're not completely sure what to say in certain situations. Now, there's a solution to this problem, and it's what we call survival phrases. Think of survival phrases as the pocket version of English. They're phrases that you can count on when you're looking for certain information or you need to ask for something. They can even help you get out of a sticky situation and also help you confidently make conversations and be understood by other English speakers. So in this lesson, we'll begin by talking about types of survival phrases that can help you facilitate conversation. Then we'll talk about chunking and learning without grammar, which is a method for learning vocabulary that's related to survival phrases. After that, I'll teach you bonus survival phrases that you will sure need when you're in an English-speaking country and you find yourself at a restaurant, in a hotel, using public transport, or asking for information. Now, in case you're new here, every week we help you to understand fast native speech, to be understood by anyone and connect to the world. Just like Julia from Italy, who says that thanks to our lessons, her accent has improved a lot. So hit that subscribe button and the bell down below. That way you won't miss any of our new lessons. When you're conversing with another English speaker, depending on your level of proficiency, you may encounter some difficulties in understanding what the other person is saying. This is by no means something that you have to feel sorry about, as you can always ask for clarification. However, a common mistake I've seen learners make way too often is asking for clarification in a way that's not culturally delicate. Let me illustrate this with this short little chat I have with Max. So, what do you enjoy about your job?
What? Sorry, what?
What do you enjoy about your job?
I don't understand.
When you're having a conversation with someone and you don't understand something, there are always better ways to react and ask for clarification than saying what or I don't understand. Also, it's never a good idea to say, huh, when you don't understand the message or make a confused or puzzled look. Remember that your body language is an important part of what you communicate, so don't use it to express fear or frustration, rather use it to communicate a more proactive intention of wanting to understand the other person. So, what are some better, more culturally delicate ways to ask for clarification? When you don't understand something somebody says, lean forward and say, sorry, excuse me, or pardon. Although we do say what from time to time, if it's someone you don't know very well, it's better to avoid this. What makes this word sound even more clumsy is saying it with a sharp T. What? English is a polite language, and this can sound quite abrupt and rude. So instead of focusing on the negative, I don't understand, focus on the solution and say, can you repeat that? If your English is still in elementary level, you could even communicate it by saying, I don't speak much English, could you speak a little slower please? You might also say, can you say that again? Or say that again please? Sometimes maybe it's not that you didn't comprehend, but that you didn't actually hear. Then you could say, sorry, I didn't catch what you said, or can you speak louder please? If it needs repeating, avoid what at all costs. In a recent podcast that we recorded, Ollie shared this story. In Australia, if we don't hear someone or we don't understand someone, we normally say pardon instead of excuse me or what. I remember one of my Brazilian friends came to Australia and used to say to my sister, what? And my sister said to me, can you tell him to stop saying what and tell him to use pardon because it's more polite. And now, what if it's just that the other person used a word that you don't know? Here's when you would say, what does said word mean? In the example of my chat with Max, he could have said, what does enjoy mean? Or what does that mean? Depending on the situation, you might want to say, sorry, what does that mean? An advantage of survival phrases is that you can consider them as units and you don't need to worry about grammar or the individual words they contain. They're supposed to be easily accessible to you when you need them, as they require little thinking. We'll talk more about that in a little bit when we discuss the concept of chunking. The other advantage of survival phrases is that you can quickly learn to say them with fluency. Imagine if you considered this. What does that mean? As a grammatical construction, it would take too much energy to think of each individual word and your fluency would suffer. Instead of putting energy into that, learn to say it in one go, like, what does that mean? And you'll soon realize you can say that phrase as well as anyone, even if you're a beginner. When you don't know how to say a word in English, you don't need to get confused. If you are fluent in this phrase, you can either ask, how do you say a word from your native language, or describe it with your body language. Or if you have enough vocab, say, how do you say, plus a description in other words. This is also the structure for many other useful questions. Here's an example where I use a description and some body language. How do you say that thing you use to drive a car? And if the other person understands your first language, you might say, how do you say volante in English? Next is, what do you mean? This expresses that you understand the content of what the speaker is saying, but the idea doesn't totally make sense. Even if you literally don't understand, this phrase is an excellent way to get the speaker to explain or rephrase what they just said. This gives you another chance to understand and it saves face. It also makes you seem a lot more confident in your communication. Native speakers don't say, I don't understand much in social interaction. This seems more formal, more rigid, and is not common in social situations. The following ones are useful for when you're the one speaking. Do you know what I mean? Know what I'm saying? With these phrases, you can verify that people are following you as you speak. This is also how we verify a deeper level of understanding, almost like, can you see it from my perspective? For example, sometimes I think that Frank works too much. Do you know what I mean? When you say, do you know what I mean, you can be looking for both verification and empathy. These survival phrases provide a safety net for when you fail to comprehend something or you don't know how to say something. For this reason, you can relax more, increase your confidence and social skills, and also your ability to flow in spoken English. Speaking of social skills and your ability to flow in spoken English, have you tried our Real Life Native Immersion course? If not, you can try our mini course right now, absolutely free. It'll help you to understand fast speech and improve your fluency. You can learn more and sign up now by clicking up here or in the description box below. What is chunking? Chunking is learning vocabulary in context. It means learning phrases or groups of words rather than single words. Survival phrases can be considered chunks if you learn them to say and use them as units rather as single words. Let's take a look at these 3 chunks. If I were you, you'd better, why don't you, what do you think we use these chunks for? Here are the options. Asking for an opinion, giving advice, showing agreement. When you learn vocabulary this way, the need for figuring out the specific way grammar works in these chunks isn't so big. You just learn to use them in the right context, and that's usually all you need to start applying them in conversation. Another advantage is that they're more practical, fluent, and idiomatic. Imagine this situation and then see if you can guess. You're late to an appointment you have with someone, and when this person calls you on the phone and asks you, "Where are you?" What would you say? You'd say, "I'm on my way." That's a chunk. You'd never actually need to stop and think of each word individually. Consider the grammar of that construction, and in terms of pronunciation, as it's a chunk, you're more likely to learn to say it more fluently, like, "I'm on my way." Here's another situation where you would need to use another chunk. You're at a restaurant and you're ready to order. What do you say to the waiter? Of these options, they're all correct. However, one is not very delicate or could be considered rude. I'd like a burger. I want a burger. I'll have a burger. Chunking, when applied to specific everyday situations, is what we would refer to as survival phrases. If you're enjoying this lesson and would like to learn more about how to improve your pronunciation and fluency, I recommend you watch this lesson we made on this topic. You can click up here or down in the description box below to watch it straight after this lesson. So now I'm going to teach you a few key survival phrases for some situations you're likely to encounter on any given day in an English-speaking country. So let's start with some survival English for the restaurant. First, you could ask the waiter, "Can I have a menu, please?" Then, when you're ready to order, you may say, "I'd like the cheese omelette, please," or "I'll have the cheese omelette," or even, "I'd like to have the cheese omelette, please." Now, let's say that nuts make you sick. How would you communicate that? "I'm allergic to nuts. Nuts make me sick. I can't tolerate nuts." If you chose A, you're right. At the end of your meal, you can request the bill or check saying, "Can I have the bill or check, please?" When you enter a hotel, you'll probably walk up to the check-in desk and either tell the receptionist that you've made a reservation, or if you haven't, that you'd like a room. You'd say, "I have a reservation," or "I have a reservation under the name," and then say your last name. If you want to inquire about prices, you could ask, "What are your rates?" or "How much is a single room for the night?" for example. Another relevant question would be, "What facilities are available to guests?" Here you'd be asking whether there's a gym or a swimming pool or a spa, etc. Other important survival phrases are, "Is there Wi-Fi in the room?" "What time is breakfast?" "Does the room have a view of the mountains?" There are some different survival phrases you'll use depending on whether you use the train, the bus, or take a taxi. With the train or bus, there's some overlap. You could ask for a single or return ticket to Manchester. When you want to know the price, you could simply ask, "How much is it?" or "How much is the fare, please?" If you want to know where the bus stop is, you could ask, "Where do I catch the bus to?" Other important questions are, which platform does the train leave from? Is this the bus that goes to the city centre? Could you please tell me where to get off? Get off means to exit the bus, so we say get on when we enter the bus and get off is the opposite. When you get into a taxi, you'd probably say, "Could you take me to?" and then the place. When you arrive at the destination, you'd say, "How much do I owe you?" or "What do I owe you?" I hope that this lesson is going to help you make a step towards better fluency. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell down below. Survival phrases are the pocket version of English. Think of them as a set of very practical phrases that you can use to always know what to say. They'll help you think more in English, adopt more idiomatic expressions, and speak more effortlessly. Just to recap, we first learned phrases that will facilitate communication. If you know how to ask for clarification and how to verify you've made yourself understood, you'll gain more confidence in your speaking skills. We briefly touched on chunking and learning without grammar. This is a fascinating topic that goes hand in hand with survival English. Give us a like and we might expand on this topic in the future. Lastly, we covered some bonus survival phrases that are useful in the context of the restaurant, the hotel, and public transport. I hope this has raised your awareness on what can be achieved by focusing on vocabulary chunks and survival phrases. Now it's your turn to keep exploring English and learn far more than we've offered you in this lesson. You can do it. Just get out of your comfort zone and start your adventure. There are 3 key aspects of pronunciation that you need to master if you want to become a fluent English speaker. These are rhythm, intonation, and stress. Now, chances are you've probably acquired these to some degree. You've probably imitated certain characteristics of the way that native speakers